My name is Johannes Maronda, and this afternoon we are here to be exploring how we structure essays, how we reference our ideas to support the arguments that we put across, and how we evaluate these critically. Right. I will start by sharing my session objectives. So we have three objectives that we need to be that will revolve around the themes that we'll be talking through. So we want to be looking at how we structure ideas that have coherent structure essays that have coherent ideas, and how we critically evaluate arguments in paragraphs to reach well-considered conclusions backed by evidence. Then again, how we appropriately reference the sources using the Harvard system. Right. I'm going to give you a typical assignment at master's level as an example that we will use to contextualize the discussions that we'll have today. So if you can look at the screen there, that is a 5,000 word written assignment that asks students to evaluate and discuss different descriptions and understandings of autism, incorporating different models of disability into the analysis. As part of the discussion, you should consider the impact of these different descriptions of autism on how children and young people are supported in schools. Right. So we are going to use that assignment to discuss how we start from the preparatory stage, where we are preparing the ideas through research, the ideas that we are going to use in the assignment, and to how we put together these ideas to formulate an appropriate assignment to this essay question. Right. The starting point of research or responding to an essay question is breaking down the essay into its respective components. And these components include three main elements, which are subjects of the essay, the restrictions, and the instructions. So subject tell us what the essay about in general, and restrictions then narrow us down to the specific context or aspects of that particular assignment in a relation. It could be area, time, and context. And instructions simply tell us what to do. And to help you identify, say, instructions are phrased using verbs. These are active verbs. For example, it could be the word describe. So the word describe tells you what you need to do specifically. And we're going to look at the definitions of some of the instructions words that are traditionally used in formulating assignment. However, we need to break down the assignment. For example, when we talk of subject, given this topic, what could be your understanding of what the subject is? Mind you, the subject is what the assignment is about. Anyone who wants to refer an answer to this? Are there any hands up?
feel free to pop it in the chat as well if anyone doesn't want to have to speak.
Yeah, if you are shy, maybe you can put your answer into the chat box. Unfortunately, I'm not able to see the chat box. However, my colleague Chloe will be
Yeah, I can let you know if there's anything in that, Johannes.
will be taking charge of the chat box. Okay, right, no problem. I will help you identify the subjects, the restrictions, and the instruction words. Right. So the subject of this assignment is autism, because this assignment in general is about autism. So that's the subject. So when you are going to say research in the library, you'll be looking at books that deal with autism, or if you research online, you can type the word autism. However, that can generate a lot of reading material, and you need to be selective in how you then identify those relevant articles that are specific to your essay question. So then from the subject, you need to go to your restrictions. So the restrictions are the different descriptions of autism. Yeah, so you are looking at different descriptions. You are also looking at models of disability. Those are the restrictions. So when you are reading, you don't simply read anything that is relating to autism. You need to be very targeted. What are the different descriptions of autism? So you might want to look from different perspectives. How do these perspectives understand or describe autism? And you might want also to look at what are the different models of disability. And of course, these will, in the majority of cases, coincide with the particular perspectives. Right. Right. So that's uh, our subjects and restrictions. Another part of the restrictions is the impact of the different descriptions. So having isolated those key elements, you might then want to go and identify key ideas that relate to these restrictions, key or that relate to the key ideas that relate to these descriptions, that relate to different models, and that relate to the impact on or the impact on autism. Right. Now, going on to the instruction words. Instruction words are simply verbs that guide us on what we exactly need to do in answering the essay questions. Is there anyone who can identify some prominent verbs in this essay question that are indicative of instruction words? Any volunteers? Okay. If there are no volunteers, you can see here at the beginning with some two verbs there,
Winnie just
evaluate.
put in, Winnie just added describe into the chat.
Yeah, describe. Okay. Right. Do we have, right, do we have the word describe there? I think our two instruction words are evaluate and discuss. Right. Now, when we are answering the essay question, we need to evaluate and discuss. Right. What do these words mean? Right. Right. On the screen, there are some definitions of words that are traditionally used as instruction words in essay questions. Right. So evaluate here is defined as discussion of the importance or value or of something or making a judgment. So discuss the importance or value of a particular element. You need to make judgments. And discuss is to investigate or examine in detail, sift the arguments and debate, give reasons for and against, examine the implications. So you can see it's a very broad definition that requires you to demonstrate some key skills, skills of investigating in detail. That means breaking down a particular idea or a particular perspective in detail, showing the arguments for and against that particular perspective, reasons, and examining the implications. So once you have gone to the library, you have identified the subjects, you have done your restrictions and you have collected notes that relate to the key elements of your restrictions. You then need to start reflecting how can you respond to this essay question. And you need a planning framework which can have an average of 6 steps. We have done the first one, analyzing the question, finding and organizing the relevant material. We have discussed that as well. So now you need to do is you need to then reflect on the ideas that you found out. These ideas, which are the most important. For example, autism can be understood from a medical perspective. It could be also understood from a social perspective and biosocial. So 3 perspectives. Now, you might want to look at of these models, which are the key arguments around each model, always focusing on what are the arguments, what are the key arguments within each of those perspectives. What are the strengths and limitations that experts within each of those perspectives point out. So as you write your notes, you might then want to identify who are these key experts that are relevant or that have considered or that have researched these particular perspectives. What do they say? What is the limitations of their what is the limitations or what are the limitations of their arguments? And you need also to bear in mind the context in which you work. Which ones are the most relevant ideas that relate to your context. And also you need to discuss to what extent can these ideas be applied to your context, right? So having considered all these ideas, you might then want to come up with approaches or positions that you adopt on the main arguments that that relate to that relate to your essay question. For example, you might say, consider that autism is understood from a medical point of view, where as a learning disability, the medical model thinks that autism should be understood from a diagnosis, cure, rehabilitation point of view, where it is treated as a limitation on functionality. And therefore, this limitation can only be addressed through curative means or through rehabilitating or managing. Therefore, the advice would be to manage people affected by these conditions using a diagnosis model and also a cure. And for example, in education, this might involve educating people who are autistic in special schools where they get uh, the appropriate management of their conditions. However, you might also want to consider the social view of autism, which says, okay, while recognizing that autism is a limitation on functionality, however, this functionality is imposed by social structures that are not responsive to the needs of the affected people. Therefore, a cure alone is not enough. We need to reform the social structures. Yeah. So I'm just pointing out some key debates around each particular perspective. Therefore, for you to be critical in your arguments, when you say you look at uh, the uh, the medical model. What are its limitations? You might say the experts who prescribe diagnosis and cure abrogate themselves a superior position and think they have solution to the problems of the affected people, when in fact they are only partners in reaching effective solutions. So what they suggest cannot be treated as absolute truths, because they are only this could only be part of the solution. Yeah. So we need to see an awareness of those elements. And again, some criticism against the medical model might be it doesn't take on board it doesn't take on board the human rights of the affected people, because by putting them in special institutions, it's not being inclusive, because it's not treating the affected people as equal to other members of society, and it's discriminatory in orientation. So these are some of the criticisms. So you might need to be aware. So when you are approaching your arguments, you need, when you are planning, identify these key debates, identify the contradictions, identify the disagreement within each perspective, and then that can be incorporated into your plan, which will result in a rough draft. But as you make your plan, try to arrange which are the most important arguments. For maybe you might want to start by a discussion of the medical model, followed by criticism of the medical model. Then you then want to suggest some alternative models like the social model or biosocial, which is a combination of the medical and the social model. So having done that, you can then produce your draft and begin writing the essay. At the draft stage, you might want to give that draft to your colleague to read through for grammar mistakes, read through for maybe coherence of ideas. You look at referencing, or alternatively, you can put your rough draft onto my feedback, which is a facility that is found in study skills or academic tutoring. I will show you the link where at the end. So you put your draft in my feedback, then within 36 hours, you will be given feedback on key issues that would have been identified with your essay. And once you have edited and corrected, you can then submit your assignment on 10/10. Okay, so basically that's the planning stage. Those are the the 6 stages that you need to follow. And if you have any challenges with each of those stages, you can always book for support from the academic tutoring team. I'll also share the link at the end. Now, at the planning stage, you need to decide on the position you want to adopt in responding to the question. Identify the main points. Arrange those points in a logical order, in a way that connects each one idea to the next. And again, we talked about the where you extract the data at the research stage. We talked about identifying the key theorists as supporting evidence, what they say, what the arguments. You might want to give examples. You want to provide illustrations, and that feeds into your rough draft. Now, is there anyone with a question at this stage? Any questions? Okay, if there are no questions, we can move on. Any questions, Chloe?
No, nothing in the chat so far.
Okay, great. Right, so if there are no questions, that means everybody is following. Right, now let's look at the second stage now is how you structure your essay. We will start with the introduction. What does the introduction do? So in the introduction, here you are simply presenting the main points that you will discuss in the essay. And an introduction should be an average of 1/10 of your essay. So if you are, say, given 5,000 words, your introduction should be no more than 500 words. Here you are explaining the main arguments. You explain why they are important. So it might be you start by identifying the key perspectives that are relevant in understanding autism, and how these and the main limitations or strengths with those. So in the introduction, you could also define key terms, but where you think this might not be appropriate because of space, you can leave the definitions for the next paragraph. You might just want to look at the key issues, and embedded within those key issues, you need also to put a thesis statement to your introduction or to your essay. A thesis statement is a statement that gives a summary of your argument. What is the position that you are taking on that particular essay? And this position should be made clear in your introduction through a thesis statement, which of course your introduction, it may highlight key disagreements and agreements within the particular issue you are discussing. But then these contradictions or these disagreements should really be evaluated. Your evaluation will indicate to your readers what position do you take in relation to the disagreements or in relation to the different ideas that are relevant to your essay, and that comprises your thesis statement. Right. Let's see example of an introduction. So this could be part of an introduction that is relevant to the essay that we have that we talked about earlier on. Now I want to give you about 2 minutes to read through that introduction. Try to identify the key elements that we have discussed and try to evaluate whether this might be an appropriate introduction to an essay. And as you can see there, I didn't make any reference. I didn't put any references. And some of you might be wondering, why no references? You know, in an introduction, it's not necessary to put references. It all depends with what the lecturer requires, because an introduction is simply a summary. You will reference these ideas as you develop the arguments in the body of your essay. Now, let's quickly read that model introduction. Yeah, sorry, that should be because across these models, there seems to be no common understanding. Yeah, not this. That's a typing error. Right, we'll move on. Any comments or questions with regard to that example introduction? Right, as you can see, each time I use some of the terms, for example, key terms like autistic spectrum disorder. I put ASD, and where I write autism spectrum condition, I write ACS and AS. Those are abbreviations. So say you then want to use these abbreviations in the body of your essay. When you first use them, you need to put the full meaning of the full version of that abbreviation. Then in subsequent use of that term, it's now permissible to use ASD, but you cannot just start by writing ASD without a full version, because your readers won't know what you are referring to. So that's an important point you need to bear in mind. Now, let's look at the next slide. Right. Now we want to look at how do we develop our main essay from the introduction. Right. We said the introduction summarizes the key ideas. So these ideas now need to be developed in the main paragraph. How do we do that? So these paragraphs should be sequentially structured with one issue being discussed, one central issue being discussed in each paragraph. And these issues need to be discussed in terms of what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, and the issues could be linked to particular theories. You also need to reference these theories by referring to key ideas that come from theorists or that comes from experts that have considered those particular viewpoints. And you might want to explain why there are differences in opinions or perspectives. For example, the medical model as opposed to the social model. Why are they why are they differences? So it could be the medical model is supported by those experts who take a strictly scientific and objective approach to treating autism or other type of disabilities, whereas the social model comes from those experts that subscribe to a human rights view and the need for to consider to consider how the institutions in a particular society can disable people. So it could be human rights, people who take a human rights perspective, or structuralists who think that it is the structure of the society that creates inequality and therefore make worse the particular conditions that people have in life. But in doing so, you need to make a fair and balanced judgments which you will use to reach your conclusion. So don't simply dismiss a theory because you don't like it or you don't agree with it, but then present its positive aspects and explain why you do not agree in using it as an approach to manage the particular conditions that you are talking about. So you need to make fair and balanced judgments. And as you conclude your arguments, you need to synthesize these arguments and reach a particular point of view, because your discussion should not be about presenting conflicting arguments. You need to consider the weaknesses and synthesize these arguments, evaluate them by showing why they might not work in a particular setting, and reach a conclusion. Right. So, in considering these arguments, there's a framework here known as the PEEL framework. Some of you might have encountered it. So the PEEL framework simply stands for point, evidence, explanation, and evaluation, and lastly, link. So when we are writing a paragraph, we start by summing up or introducing the main idea of that paragraph. Right. This main idea could be a claim that we are making. This claim could be that the medical model is one of the most effective methods of managing conditions like autism, right? But then this is simply a claim. It's not enough to simply make that claim, right? That claim needs to be substantiated. It needs to be supported by evidence, right? Who said what in relation to that particular idea? So you might then want to find research or an expert who supports this idea and the reason why they do so, right? So one supporting a piece of evidence is not enough. You might then want to say this idea is further supported by so and so who says that. And again, so and so also support this idea, although they caution on the fact that, yeah, it might be they partially support that idea, but then they have certain reservations. We want to see those nuances or those finer details of agreements and disagreements. So when you write a paragraph, we need at least 3 pieces of evidence. So if you write a paragraph without any reference, that cannot pass as an academic paragraph, except if it is an introduction or a conclusion. So within the body of your essay, each paragraph, at least you need 3 to 5 references. For master's level, it could be more. And it could be more for master's level, because then you might want multiple reference. Say you pick one idea, and tied to that idea, you say have identified 3 experts that bring out or that adopt the same argument. So you can write that idea at the end of that idea, then you name drop the 3 experts, then you can go on to the next idea. Maybe you name drop 2, 3 experts as well, the same as with your third piece of evidence. You name drop 3 2 to 3 experts. So you can see in total you could have, say, 9 references on average. Let's just say 10 references per paragraph. So that is a demonstration that you have read widely, you have considered different viewpoints, and that a paragraph will be regarded with respect. It's likely to have some quality arguments depending on whether on the quality of your sources. So it's very important to support your argument. But then, having given those pieces of evidence, we assume there are 3 of them, you then need to evaluate to what extent do you think these ideas are useful? To what extent do they contribute to the understanding of various issues within the particular context? So your fourth and fifth sentence could be your analysis, your evaluation. You are trying to evaluate to what extent are they this useful. Or you might want to say present a counter argument to these views, although that may, depending on the approach you adopt, that can confuse your reader. Maybe you can deal with the strengths. Then in the next paragraph, that's where you begin your critique, or that critique part of it can be included in that paragraph. Then you signpost that these ideas will be explored in greater depth in the next paragraph. That means in this the present paragraph, you have highlighted the key ideas that are presented by those who experts who support that particular view. But then you also need to show an awareness that there are limitations, and these limitations include, you can just summarize that, and this will be discussed in the next paragraph. So that's one approach that you can use to discuss. And I like the Peel framework because it's easy to use. It makes your ideas easy to follow. Right. Now, here is a model to generate critical thinking. So as you are discussing using that the Peel framework, for you to deepen your analysis, you need to ask a number of questions. For example, in the last paragraph, we've dealt with the what, when, who, and where. Yeah, you are discussing people who support a particular view, but then you might then want to ask why do they come up with these viewpoints, and how do they think these viewpoints might be applied? But then what if they don't work? For example, the medical approach, some say it's an imposition of experts as views on society, or on people that have various limitations, therefore they are not suitable. So what if they don't work? So some people might say they are not appropriate, they might not work for some people. So what? So alternative model, that's where you then say, to mitigate the limitations of the medical model, it might be useful to explore other models that might address these shortcomings. And the social model has been suggested as a suitable framework that can address issues of difference, such as gender, social class, ethnicity, and so on. Right. And what next? Right. So as you argue, you might say incorporating an alternative model such as the social model might address some of these issues. However, more research needs to be undertaken to find out what the impact might be. Or you might then want to say, offer a perspective on how this, on the success of applying, or of how alternative theory might be applied. You might want to say, however, even though there's a suggestion that adopting a social model might mitigate the challenges of using a purely medical approach. However, some of these approaches have also not worked in reality, because the social model, while it seeks to incorporate human rights and consider the impact of social institutions. However, adopting inclusive approaches have not yielded practical benefits for the affected people. For example, educating children with conditions like autism in mainstream classes or mainstream schools based on human rights arguments has not worked because these children have not achieved progress in their education. Right? So that's a strong criticism to the alternative model. Therefore, you might say, therefore, despite the limitations of the medical model, it is still a practical model that can be used to achieve considerable progress or considerable positive achievements for the affected people. Right. So that's the medical, that's the critical model to critical analysis. So here I have some descriptive, some statements that describe what descriptive writing is and critical or analytical writing is. You might want to look at them in your spare time, but if your writing is purely focused on statements that are to the left, then it needs to veer more to those elements that are to my right, where you are identifying significance of things, significance of your ideas, you're evaluating strengths and weaknesses, you are making a case according to evidence. So have a look at those statements and see how you can apply those key elements in your essays. Right. Now, one important skill that is linked to critically evaluating your ideas and making arguments is linking and signposting your ideas. So where you are starting each paragraph, always signpost what has come before it. For example, you could say the previous discussion has highlighted the importance of this section will now focus on. And inside your paragraphs as well, link your ideas using discourse markers, connectives, and conjunctions. These connectives and conjunctions include, however, alternatively, further to this, in spite of this, in closing, consequently, in summary. So here you are closing your arguments, right? That table presents some key linking words and phrases that are important when you are writing your essays. And the Manchester Phrase Bank has lots of them, especially where you are criticizing ideas, where you are making conclusions, where you are indicating a transition from one idea to the other. So have a look at that and also go to the Manchester Phrase Bank. The links will be contained in these slides. Right now, you might also want to bear in mind that as you discuss, there's importance of making sure that you show due consideration to make fair judgments. And I have already talked about that. And as you make these fair judgments, you should avoid adopting extreme or absolute positions on issues. So where you are making your conclusions, try to hedge your arguments. Hedging language relates to taking a position that is suggestive for example, where you say the evidence suggests that, rather than making a bold claim that this is what happens, but you are simply saying this is what the evidence suggests, or it seems there is compelling evidence to conclude. We are not saying it can be concluding, but we are saying, given the body of evidence, it seems this might be a reasonable position to take. Right. So that's hedging. Now, let's look at some exemplar paragraphs. Right. On the screen there, I have one paragraph, and we have another one in the next slide as well. Can you take some 2 to 3 minutes to read through? And if you have any comments, I'm free to hear your comments, or if you have any questions. Right. As you can see in this paragraph, I've tried to incorporate most, if not all, those skills that I've been talking about previously. You can see I start with a topic sentence, then there is supporting evidence. You can see all those references. So supporting evidence, further evidence, right? And after that, there's critical evaluation. So that's my evaluation leading to a conclusion. And as you can see in the critical evaluation, there aren't any references, because then I'm dealing with those ideas that I have already introduced. I'm trying to look at the merits and the demerits of those views. And again, I have included connectives and linking words within the paragraph. You can see, however, there, where else, right? There's however, right? Therefore, you can see in the last sentence, yeah, so those are linking words. And also, I have included hedging language. In addition, external rewards could, we are not saying they definitely do that, they could. Consequently, this might. So that's a hedging language. So that's this kind of academic language that you expect in your paragraphs, and it ends with a concluding sentence. And you move on to the next paragraph. Right, that's another model paragraph. We are not going to be looking at it, but however, you could read it when you get the slides. Now, moving on to the conclusion. What does a conclusion do? So having presented your arguments, you now need to demonstrate how have you responded to the question and arrived at an overall point of view in response to that question. So you present that and you present us with a summary of the arguments that you have used to arrive at that overall conclusion. And your conclusion should be consistent with the arguments that you have presented throughout the essay. Right, so that's the conclusion. Now let's look at another important key area when you are writing, which is referencing and citations. Right, so when you evidence your ideas, you need to show where these ideas are coming from, right? I won't go into details about plagiarism or making a summary because of time, but however, I have included these slides so that they can guide you on why is referencing important, how do you summarize key ideas from a paragraph, and the slides are self-explanatory. But I might want now to look at how do we reference. For example, where you are citing one author, you begin with maybe citing the name of that author, and you give the name of publication of that particular article you have read in brackets. There are no initials in text citations. Or alternatively, you might want to write the statement in full and put the reference at the end. Where you put it at the end, everything goes in brackets, right? The surname and the year separated by a comma, then full stop at the end. Where you are making direct citations, or where you choose part of a text from a particular writer because of its impact, because that idea has been expressed so well, you need to put the page number of where you took that particular direct quote. But these should be kept to a minimum, and also you don't need to cite whole sentences. It should be just a phrase or two or three phrases, because if you quote very long sentences, it might be a demonstration that you didn't understand the text and you are simply copying other people's views. So that's direct citations. Now, where you cite two authors, the surnames of both authors needs to be listed. For three authors, you list three of them, but from four, it's just the first author and et al, as indicated in the slides there. Where you are putting the reference at the end, you present it like in the second alternative statement there, where you put both the surname and the year in brackets separated by full stop and a comma. Where there's et al in brackets, you put full stop and a comma. But where you are putting the et al outside the brackets, it's just a full stop, like in the first statement. Right. Now, in some cases, you might make reference to web pages. For example, it could be a policy document where no author is given. So in that particular case, you cite the publisher of that article as the author. For example, this has been published by Department for Education. So you cite as DFE, like that. Right. And where you are, say, using an article that does not have an author, you might want to use the title of that publication. For example, you are reading a publication known as Sexual Lifestyle. So you just cite it as the author, but then you need to put that in italics as shown in the slides there. And where you put, yeah, you are citing multiple sources. In our previous discussion, we said you might want to ascribe one idea to a number of a number of authors or experts. So in this particular case, you arrange your different sources in chronological order of their publication, starting with the earliest. For example, you see there Marmot and Wilkinson 2011, followed by 2013 and 2015. However, where the dates are the same within that multiple reference list, now just check the one that comes in the alphabet first, followed by the next in alphabetical order. For example, here you can see Larkin and Nettleton were both published in 2013. So just to put Larkin first. Right. Now, where one author cites another, this is called secondary referencing. So it might be a case where a faculty is cited in Gabriel book. So you say faculty 1988 cited in Gabriel 2017. So you can see that text that is big letters there was written by Gabriel. However, Gabriel is entirely depending on the ideas of Foucault. So when you cite those ideas, you say Foucault in Gabriel says this is shown in the two alternative references there, right? So that's secondary referencing. Right now, where you begin to write your reference list, for a textbook, it's surname of author and initials. Now it's different from in-text citation. In the reference list, we need initials, year of publication in brackets, title of book in italics, place of publication, followed by colony and publisher, right? There is an example written in blue. For a journal, it's author, year of publication, title in single quotation marks, then journal of the title of the journal title in italics. Then we have volume, issue number, page numbers in DOI if that is available. And that's an example there given again in green. For a website, it's all surname of the article and initials, year of publication, then title of article in italics, then you put full stop, then you write available at, simply copy the URL, paste it onto your document, and in brackets put the date you last read that particular article as given in the example there, right? So when it comes to compiling the full reference list, you then need to arrange them by alphabetical order. So you will see you have a mixture of textbooks, journals, and websites as follows, yeah? So you can see you arrange those in alphabetical order, starting from those at the top going down, right? In a nutshell, this is what I wanted to share. I wanted to share with you. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask questions. Any questions? Okay. Right. If there are no questions, then you might want to access our services. So if you go to the University of East London SharePoint, you will see various links. For example, you go into student links. The second link in student links will be the one for academic tutoring. It's either it will be presented as study skills or academic tutoring. And that link should take you to a page that looks like this. And within that link, you find there's my feedback there, where we said you can drop your assignments for checking. And at the end, there is a link to book for drop-ins. And these happen between 10 o'clock. That's the morning drop-in, and the afternoon drop-in is at 1 o'clock. The maths ones are at 11 and 1 o'clock. Right. In between those links, you have links that take you to resources, study skills, writing and referencing, and maths and statistics. Right. So there you are. Please feel free to use our services. And if you need to make follow-ups, you can make follow-ups once you have received the slides. You are free to book in for drop-ins, support to get further support. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much, Johannes. And yeah, I just popped in. Thanks everyone for joining, and I will make sure to have this recording posted on Moodle tomorrow. But definitely feel free to reach out if there's any questions afterwards. Okay. Thanks everyone.
Sure. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Chloe.